Hi there. To kickstart the videos for the absolute beginner section, what I want to first do is take you through and show you two cameras that you're likely to come across or use in the future. Now, when it comes to the world of digital SLRs, there's really three types. There's the absolute beginners digital SLRs, which are normally lower resolution, they've got less features, less functions. Then you've got a prosumer semi-professional digital SLR like the Canon 5D here, and then you've got the full-on professional 1 series from Canon, the professional digital SLR, which generally has a lot more features, it's faster, and it's a lot more robust and weather durable, that kind of thing. But I'm quickly going to show you just how different these two cameras can be, and it's definitely worth bearing this in mind when you're looking to buy a camera. Now, the first thing, here we have the Canon 5D. Now, as you can see, it's a fairly small camera, it's easy to handhold, it's light as it is, and I love this camera. It's actually, for me, one of the best cameras I've ever used since I've been doing photography, and that was started back in about 1979. The image quality of this is fantastic. I love the fact that it's lightweight and I can take it anywhere. But as you can see, I've got quite big hands and I do sometimes find it quite hard to hold. But it's not such a problem. I use it on a tripod. But what I also use is a battery grip here that comes with most prosumer digital SLRs. Now, what this will do is add 2 batteries to the back. You can actually have 2 batteries within the casing itself, as opposed to just one that goes in the camera. So first of all, you're going to double the battery life of this camera. So if I just quickly put this on, it just simply slots in and screws on, and there you go. I've now got a much bigger camera that I find much easier to hold, especially for weddings, that kind of thing. I just like the bulk of it. Now, for those of you out there who've got slightly smaller hands, you might find it easier without the battery grip, because it can become quite a bit heavy and cumbersome, especially if you're going to be using it all day long. Now, what I particularly like about the battery grip is the fact that I've got here a shutter release and controls for the aperture or shutter speed, whatever I choose that to be. But when I flip the camera, I've also got a shutter button here and the same control here. And I've also got the controls that are on the back here that I can operate with my thumb while I'm shooting in landscape mode. I've also got the same buttons here that I can operate in portrait mode as well. So it's fully functional either way, and I can actually throw the camera quite quickly using the camera grip whenever I'm shooting portraits. I find that very, very helpful. But similarly to the professional bodies, it still gets quite a bit heavy when you're shooting all day long. Now, we're going to talk a bit more about the SLRs in a minute and the basic features and functions of them, but I want to show you the difference between that and the professional digital SLR. Now, this is a beast. I've been using this setup for weddings for a couple of years now, and as you can see, there's no battery grip. It's all built into the body, so this creates a camera that you can't basically make lighter. When you've got this on, it's as heavy as it is. This weighs a good few pounds, and after a day shooting at a wedding, especially if this is around my neck, I feel the strain on my back, and obviously with my arms as well, it can get very, very heavy. But there's basic differences between this and the prosumer digital SLR that it's worth making note of. Now, you can see here, if we take the lens off, it's very easy to do. Most DSLRs have a button at the front here. You just simply push in, which unlocks the mechanism for the lens, and you slowly twist it and off it comes. And it's a bayonet mount. They're very solid, very sturdy, and the professional series have a rubber grip on the inside of the lens, so it's actually weather sealed. But you can see inside there you've got the mirror that flips up, and behind that is the sensor. Now, at the moment, nothing's being recorded. The mirror is down, the shutter's closed, and the sensor's inactive. But what happens with DSLRs is that, and this is why what you see is what you get, when you look through the viewfinder or using the live view, you actually see the image that you're going to shoot. And what happens is the image through the lens goes through the viewfinder, through the lens, hits the mirror, which bounces it up into this prism here. It's called a pentaprism. So it'll bounce around and then come out the back here, and you're seeing the exact image that you're going to be shooting. With many other cameras, you used to have a viewfinder on top and look through that, and that wasn't actually seeing what was going to be recorded. So that's the beauty of a digital SLR. What you see is what you get through the viewfinder. Okay, So let's just put the lens back on there, and we're just going to talk about the basics of an SLR. Now when you put the lens back on, you don't need to push the button in, because what happens is you line up the red dots. There's a red dot on the camera, a red dot on the lens. Simply line them up, put it together, turn and click. Do that again. You can hear the click. That's when you know the camera's attached to the lens. So, and it's pretty sturdy, there's no movement or anything. So let's just put that one down for a minute, because it's very, very heavy. And then go back to the Canon. And I'm actually going to take the battery grip off here, because most people, I'm assuming, won't have a battery grip. They just have the standard lens. So let's just take that off and take one of the batteries out. Now, most cameras have what's called a lithium ion battery. As technology moves on, they get better and better. The power output, I think this will last for about over 1,000 shots on one battery. The newer ones maybe even go a bit further. Now, if we just take the bottom compartment out of here, it handily fits in there when you're not using it. So let's just put that back on here. Closed, ready to go. So now we've got the basic prosumer digital SLR, the Canon 5D. Now let's explain a few things about this. All cameras, all digital SLRs, basically work on the same principle. They have the prism. What you see is what you get. The light goes through the lens, bounces on the mirror, up into the prism and out through the viewfinder. What you're seeing is what you're going to shoot. The minute you take the shot and hit the shutter button, what happens is the mirror flips up, so you're not seeing anything through the viewfinder anymore, and then the shutter opens, exposes the image, shutter closes, mirror flops down, and you can see through it again. And that's basically how all of these cameras work. No digital SLR is different at the moment. So really, when you're choosing a camera or when you're using a camera, you have to understand that no matter what make or model, how professional the camera is, they all work on the same principles of light. And there's also just 3 simple rules to follow, that when you're using an SLR, that there's not really any other functions or features you need than these 3 things. First of all, it's the shutter speed. Now, even if you set the camera to manual, you just set the shutter speed yourself, and then you're good to go with whatever shutter you need for the job. Then you've got the aperture. Now, sorry, let's go back to the shutter. The shutter speed determines how long the light is exposed for. So when you hit the shutter button, let's put it on, we're on 250th. Now that's quite a fast shutter speed, 250th of a second. The shutter opens very quickly and closes, very little light gets in, and you'll freeze the action. If we turn that down to half a second, you can hear there's a big difference, and a half a second exposure will let a lot more light in, but obviously if you've got a movement in front of the camera, you're going to get that recorded as well, so you won't get a sharp image. But we'll go into the more detail on that later on through the course. Secondly, what you've got to control light going in through the camera is the aperture. Now the aperture is within the lens itself, and what it is like an iris. If you think about your eye and the pupil, the brighter something gets, your pupil opens up. Your pupil closes to stop the light getting in, and the darker it gets, your pupil will open up very wide to allow more light in, so you can actually see what you're doing. And that's no different to the iris or aperture in a lens, and you can actually control that depending on what setting you're on. So you're controlling light either from the shutter, which tells you how much light and for how long is hitting the shutter, and the aperture controls how much light gets through the hole, or the aperture, or the iris. So that's 2 ways of allowing light to expose the image. The third way is the ISO. Now the ISO is the sensitivity of the sensor. For example, 50 ISO or 100 is normally the average, or the normal that most people would use, and that's not very sensitive. It's great for outdoors in bright sunshine or some studio where you've got bright lights. But then you go up to 400, 800, which is good for dull days or dark days, or some indoor shots if you've got quite good light. And then you can go up to 1600, 3200, 6400, and they go up even higher these days. Now that makes the sensor very, very sensitive, and it's perfect for wedding photography. You think about a wedding, people don't want flashes going off, they don't want studio lights on them. So you're able to increase the ISO and use your camera without flash, so you're not interrupting anybody. Which is a great feature. So really, whatever DSLR you look at, whatever fantastic features and gimmicks like face detection and all the servo focusing, no matter what a DSLR's got, the three basic things are that: shutter speed, aperture, and the ISO, controlling the sensitivity. So really, at the end of the day, you should be able to, at the end of this course, pick up any DSLR you like and use it to get great photos. It doesn't matter what else it's got, it doesn't matter what the name is, it doesn't matter on the model, it doesn't matter how many megapixels you've got. The basic fundamentals of photography and these digital SLRs remains the same. Now let's quickly run through what you've got on here as well. The functions and features on all makes and models will vary quite wildly in some makes and models. I like the 5D because it's followed on from the 30D, the 20D, the 10D. All the controls have stayed pretty much the same throughout all of the upgrades that they've made to these cameras. And the next one I'm going to get is the 5D Mark II, and it's on order at the moment. And I love it because it's just revamped, renewed, and they've got bigger megapixels. It's got a few more features that are quite good, but the main thing is they've kept the image quality the same, but what they've done is kept the layout exactly the same. So I can pick that camera up and just shoot it straight away because I know how it works from using its predecessor here, the 5D. The hardest thing that I've noticed is when you go from a Canon or a Nikon to a different camera like a Sony or an Olympus. If you're thinking of changing brands, you must understand that the menu layout, all the button layouts, everything's going to be radically different. So it's going to be a completely new learning curve. So my advice when you're thinking of buying a new camera or upgrading to a new kit, especially if you're deciding to go semi-professional, getting paid for your work, first thing to do, pick your lenses. Basically what you want to be doing is getting yourself together a selection of really good high quality lenses, and then you can just upgrade your cameras throughout every single upgrade they make, or whenever you feel like you need to upgrade. This one's come to the end of its shutter life almost, it's been used so much, so that's why I'm upgrading it. But really, if you've got a whole set of really good quality lenses, all you need to do then is upgrade the camera. The lenses will still fit the new makes and models of the brand that you've got. What you can't do, or you can, is actually attach a Nikon lens to a Canon. You can actually use an adapter to do that, but really you want to keep them all the same kind of model and make, if you like. So really think about what brand of camera you want, whether it's a Canon or Nikon, Olympus or Sony, whatever, and then stick with that. Get used to it, get used to the controls, the menu layouts, build up a good arsenal of lenses, and then you'll become familiar with that kit, and when you upgrade it'll be a lot easier on the learning curve. Now, first thing I will say to all beginners and all newcomers to photography is, don't be put off or afraid by all of the buttons and gadgets and gizmos and all the symbols and everything that come with the cameras. By the end of this course, and after you've read everything and watched the videos and seen us in action taking photos and showing you what all the features and functions and buttons do, you should become a lot more comfortable, and you'll also realise that most of them you don't need to use. At the end of the day, I only use manual, aperture priority and shutter priority. That's pretty much it. I don't use any of the auto functions unless I'm in a real sticky situation where I just need to shoot and go. Really, they're simple. All the cameras are simple. There's no need to overcomplicate things. Shutter, lens, and a film or a sensor, that's it. It's just knowing how to manipulate the controls to get the best photos and the best details, such as blurred backgrounds and that kind of thing. So we're going to take you through all the other videos on this course, and later on in the DSLR course we're going to take you through all of this in much more detail. But for now, that's just the basic difference between a prosumer, quite a handy small little camera, right up to the full professional DSLR. So really you want to work out whether you want to jump straight in with one of these beasts. Obviously they're a lot more money, probably twice the cost in most cases. But they are more durable. If you're going to be shooting outside in wet weather and getting the camera knocked about, maybe doing photojournalism, then you may want to look at a tougher model such as this. But really, as I've said, the make and model of the camera that you're going to be using and hopefully testing throughout this course doesn't really matter. As long as you've got a good camera that does basically what you need it to do, and you've got some 1 or 2 quality lenses, then you're pretty much good to go. So thanks for watching this, and welcome to the course, and we'll see you in the next video.